Hey guys, it's Erin from wellplated.com, and I am here today with one of those wonderful recipes that manages to both taste great and be great for you too. These are my Whole30 Vegetarian Power Bowls. Now, I'm not following a Whole30 diet myself, and whether you are or are not, I highly encourage you to make this recipe because it is so delicious and filling, and it's great for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. It starts out with one of my favorite vegetables of all time, and that is sweet potatoes. We're actually going to be layering a variety of different vegetables all onto the same sheet pan, and we're gonna kind of do it in stages. Because sweet potatoes are a harder and larger vegetable, they take longer to bake, so we're gonna give them a head start. Right along with the sweet potatoes, I'm gonna roast some red onion. I really feel like when it comes to roasting vegetables, a lot of people forget about onions, but they have a really wonderful flavor. They get crispy and caramelized in the oven. So you can leave the onion in great big wedges like this, and believe it or not, they'll roast in about the same amount of time as our sweet potato halves. Now, to make sure that the vegetables get nice and golden, I'm gonna drizzle on some olive oil. And then for flavor, I'm sprinkling them with some salt, pepper, and chili powder. The chili powder makes for a really nice contrast with the sweetness of the potatoes. And I'm gonna give them a rub. You wanna make sure that all of your vegetables get really nicely coated with the spices. Your hands might get a little messy doing this, but it is totally and completely worth it. So now that we have our first stage of vegetables prepped, I'm gonna pop these in the oven for 10 minutes to give them a head start while I work on our next vegetable, and that is broccoli. Something really wonderful about a recipe like this one is that you can really swap in any vegetables that you love or happen to have left over in your refrigerator. So for example, sometimes I like to make this with cauliflower. If you have green beans or asparagus, that works really nicely too. The main thing you want to think about is, okay, how long does each vegetable need? As I mentioned, the sweet potatoes and onions need the longest, so that is why we started with them first. Broccoli is gonna need about 20 minutes, so now I'm just gonna hang out and wait for our first vegetables to finish cooking. One other vegetable that I really like to add onto this, and that will be at the very end, is kale. So while the potatoes and onions are cooking, I'm gonna go ahead and prep it. This is just one small bunch of kale. It comes on the stem like this. You can leave it on the stem, but I find it sort of just chewy and not that pleasant to eat. So what I do is just hold the stem and I just pull the leaves right on off like this. Super easy. Because we're gonna be chopping the vegetables afterwards, you can just leave the kale in great big chunks like this. It's very casual. And then I'm gonna drizzle the kale with a little bit of olive oil and then sprinkle it with some salt and pepper. Olive oil, salt, and pepper are just the building blocks for delicious roasted vegetables, no matter what kind of vegetable you're cooking. Just giving it a light toss. The kale is only gonna be in the oven for about 5 minutes or so, so it doesn't need quite as much olive oil, but you definitely want a little bit to help it get crispy and caramelized. Okay, time to go check on our potatoes and onions. All right, our sweet potatoes and onions are already starting to smell sweet, spicy, and super yummy. So it is time to layer on the broccoli. I'm gonna toss it right in this open spot on the pan, drizzle it with a little olive oil, and then I'm gonna sprinkle it with that same blend of salt, pepper, and chili powder. It looks like a lot, but you really want the broccoli to have a lot of flavor. Now, very carefully, because this is a hot pan, toss it. I should probably be using a spatula, but I'm gonna live a little dangerously. All right, our broccoli is spread into a single layer, so I'm gonna pop this pan back into the oven until our vegetables are caramelized on the outside and tender on the inside. That'll take about 20 to 25 additional minutes. Just look at this rainbow of veggie goodness. They smell amazing, and I am kind of tempted to dive in right now, but we can't forget our kale. This is the final step. You just kind of can toss the kale right on top like this. Because they are cut in such small pieces and are so soft compared to our larger vegetables, the kale's gonna cook in just about 5 minutes. All right, I'm gonna pop this back into the oven one last time, and while the kale cooks, I'm gonna stir up the most wonderful, creamy tahini dressing to drizzle over the top. Now, it is time to make that wonderful tahini dressing that I told you about. If you haven't had tahini before, it smells so toasty and nutty. It's actually paste made out of sesame seeds. So you can think about it kind of like peanut butter or almond butter, but again, with those sesame seeds. It's really popular in Middle Eastern cooking, and I absolutely love it with roasted vegetables. If you've ever made hummus before, tahini is also in hummus. You might even actually have a jar that's kind of hanging out in the back of your refrigerator that you're not sure what to do with. This dressing is the perfect solution. All right, to give the dressing a lot of great flavor, I'm gonna add some minced garlic, a little bit of cumin for some heat, some salt to bring out all the other flavors, a splash of water to keep the dressing from being too thick, and then last but not least, some freshly squeezed lemon juice. This is going to bring the entire recipe to life. I love using a citrus press like this one because it really squeezes every last drop of juice out of my lemons and limes. All right, now you just give it a whisk. At this point, you can kind of judge the consistency of your dressing. If you'd like it a bit thinner, add a little more water or lemon juice, and to make it thicker, just dollop in a touch more tahini. This looks perfect to me. Okay, I can smell the kale. It's time to pull it out of the oven. And now it is time for that beautiful moment where we put it all together. So for each bowl, I like to kind of layer all of the vegetables into the bottom and then top it with the dressing and a soft boiled egg. So to start out, I'm gonna grab some of the veggies. Ooh, careful, they're hot. Grab myself a big old slice of sweet potato. Oh my gosh, I just love sweet potatoes, and it's so good with that chili powder on it. Can't forget our sweet, crispy onions. Oh, just look how tender they got. So now I'm gonna give everything kind of a rough chop. Now you could just put these all on a plate and eat them with a knife and fork, but there's just something about having it all together in one cozy bowl that I think is so much more fun and satisfying. All right, we are almost done. There are just 2 more things left to add. We have our dressing, of course. So I'm gonna drizzle it right over the top. I can smell that sesame. It smells wonderful, and with that bit of cumin in there, it's gonna be so good with the chili powder that we used with the vegetables. For an extra punch of protein, I like to add a soft boiled egg. Part of the inspiration behind this recipe was actually a number of readers I have that were following a Whole30 diet, and Whole30 tends to be pretty meat heavy, so they were looking for a recipe that would still be super filling, but that wasn't so intense on the meat. And that really inspired me to come up with what we have here, which is a beautiful, super filling, satisfying recipe that, yes, is Whole30 approved, but it will be approved by anyone that appreciates a satisfying, delicious, and wholesome meal. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this bowl powers up your day as much as it does mine. Again, my name's Erin, and you can grab this recipe at my website, wellplated.com.